or visit citi.com/rewards.
Welcome back to The Cycle. Let's go back to the opinion the court issued today, striking down 3 out of the 4 major provisions of Arizona's controversial immigration law, but upholding the most controversial of them all, the so-called show me your papers provision. In the guest spot today, Hipólito Acosta, a former Border Patrol agent and district director for the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and the author of an awesome-sounding book, The Shadow Catcher, a U.S. agent infiltrates Mexico's deadly crime cartels. Hipólito, are you comfortable with any police officer in Arizona having the right to stop and assess the status of anyone they see?
Well, what I'm uncomfortable with is the lack of training that's being provided for officers to make such a determination. I'm very strong on enforcement of all the laws of our country, but I just want to make sure I would ensure that each individual that's going to be making such a big decision to detain someone would be properly trained, and that's my concern with that provision of SB 1070.
I share your concern. There's supposedly training in New York City around stop and frisk, and still officers are stopping all kinds of people, whoever they think is making a suspicious movement, which can be defined in any way they want. But you've been on the front lines of all this. What would you do to fix the problem?
Well, the whole immigration issue, of course, has been neglected for many, many years by our federal government. It should be enforced by federal authorities, and we've had tremendous agents in the U.S. Immigration Service and those serving under Department of Homeland Security now. But one of the things that we have, and people, I'm sure, understand out there, is that the magnet that attracts people coming into our country because they can obtain jobs in the interior cities of the United States is what keeps on drawing people to transit states like Arizona. That doesn't necessarily mean that undocumented aliens coming into our country are going to stay in Arizona. We have anywhere estimates from 11 to 13, 14 million undocumented aliens in the United States, many of which are in interior cities of the United States, and a big neglect of our federal government has been interior enforcement. We've done the right thing in increasing our Border Patrol agents throughout the border. We're up to 23,000 in our efforts to secure the borders, and those are the right steps to take. But we have always neglected to enforce interior enforcement by holding companies accountable for being a magnet coming into the United States. And furthermore, we have probably anywhere from 1.5 to 2 million undocumented aliens in the United States who actually came in with U.S. visas at consular posts issued abroad. So one of the things that we need to focus on is securing the border, which I think our agents do a tremendous job, and we need to be very vigilant. But secondly, we need to be serious about interior worksite enforcement, which I believe has been a big cause for people coming to the country, because if they can work, they're going to continue coming to the United States.
And Hipólito, to that point, have there been major differences between the George W. Bush administration and the Obama administration on enforcement, both at the border and interior enforcement?
Well, you know, we've recently seen the Obama administration actually having a larger number of deportation, but the reality is that the deportations have occurred for individuals who have committed other crimes in the United States. That initiative also played a big part during the Bush administration. But I want to use an example of what is similar between the two administrations, which I think also causes a tremendous problem and doesn't address the immigration issue, and that's the fact that the Immigration Service conducts, or ICE as it is called now, conducts audits at employment locations, and the employers are then notified that a large portion of their workforce might be using fraudulent identities. Instead of arresting those individuals at those work sites, the companies are merely required to fire those individuals without taking the documents away from them. So they simply go on to the next employer that's willing to take them. That was done under the Bush administration, and it's being done under the Obama administration, which I think plays a big role in continuing to be a magnet for undocumented aliens to come to the United States.
You know, you talk about the magnet effect, but there are some statistics that kind of jump out at me, and one is that if you look at from 2005 to 2010, the number of Mexicans Mexicans illegally entering the United States was basically equal to the number who were leaving. It seems to me that pattern has kind of changed in response maybe to the crash of the economy, to the stepped up border enforcement. Deportations are basically at an all-time high under Obama. You point to the fact that we have 10, 12, 13 million who are here already, but it seems to me when I read those statistics, I say we're doing a pretty good job on enforcement right now. The magnet effect doesn't maybe exist the way it did a decade ago. So really at that point the issue becomes, how do we deal with the people we have in here right now? And it seems to me that's where Congress and some kind of comprehensive reform is the solution. Are you optimistic we're moving in that direction at all now? We've had such little luck with that for the past generation.
Well, I don't necessarily know that I agree with those statistics, because when we talk about a reduction of the Mexican illegal population in the United States, I don't know how we come up with the estimates that that number is leaving the United States, because we have a substantial number who legalize their status, so they're no longer counted in that particular population. But bear in mind that in 2001, 2002, we had 2 to 3 million illegal aliens in the United States. Now we're up to over 10, 11 million. Right. There's a lot of factors as to why that has happened. But one of the things is that when we talk about a reduction of the people coming into the country, we already have a large population of illegal aliens in the country. The economy has played a major part in that reduction. And of course, we can't minimize how important our border security has been, because it's made it much, much harder for people to get smuggled into the United States. So those are all the factors that I say have contributed to what we have right now. The bottom line is that I think we need to address this issue. We need to address the issue of what to do with 11, 12 million people in the country who are not identified, who are not legal to work. What do we do with those? And I think we need to address the issue, because it's been neglected for too long of a period of a time. And I'm not saying that we should do it without penalizing those individuals who entered the country illegally, because the law was violated, and we have a recourse for people who violate the law to either be penalized, because I know that there's not going to be an effort to deport 12 million people from the United States.
Well, Crystal, and I want to ask you, Antonin Scalia, in his dissent today, maybe my all-time favorite justice, in his inimitable way,
minority on that opinion.
For sure. In his inimitable way, wrote this: if securing its territory in this fashion is not within the power of Arizona, we should cease referring to it as a sovereign state. That is A, so Scalia, and B, so juicy. Is he wrong? Tell me, how do you respond to that?
He is wrong, and actually I don't have to respond, because in the majority opinion, they stated very clearly that there was a lot of latitude. They essentially reaffirmed the Obama administration's executive order prioritizing enforcement of the decision. So, I don't think that there's any question that this is an issue that needs to be addressed at the federal level. I think everybody's on the same page there. So what we need to ask is, who is standing in the way of that progress? And thus far, it has been Republicans, actually under George W. Bush, put forward a plan that was moderate, that was reasonable, but since then, they've made amnesty an absolutely dirty word, and as Hipólito just said, there's no way we're going to deport 11, 12 million people. It just doesn't make sense, and self-deportation is not an answer.
And also standing in the way of progress, to what you brought up earlier before the show, private prison companies lobbying for this so they can get more money for themselves for their product. We're going to get to private later.
We got to go, Hipólito. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm sorry, sir. We got to wrap up, but thank you so much. You will be back. You are much loved on this team. Next up, a break from the Supreme Court. We're going to turn our attention to why men don't get help, and maybe talk a little bit about my own experience in therapy.
Oh, no.